Welcome back, Warriors, to the Testing Grounds edition of the Warriors Den. And what kind of Testing Grounds edition would it be without Stefan and JC? How are you guys doing today?
Pretty good, you guys. What about you guys?
We're pretty hyped. There's a lot of interesting subjects to get to. Let me just run over the docket real quick. We're going to start with option selects, go from the most exciting subject to Orochi, and then we're going to go from Orochi to Raider, and then from there to the main eventer, Shinobi. So that'll be
Sounds
a
like a roller coaster.
Yeah.
It is a kind of roller coaster. I don't know where the ups and downs are. And just as a reminder to Warriors, the testing grounds is July 1st through July 8th. Please send us your feedback in the surveys and on Reddit. It helps us out a lot. We're going to have a bunch of meetings about all the stuff you say. So we need you guys to say stuff for those meetings to be good. So please send us your feedback. All right.
I mean, it might still be not good with the feedback, but it'll be
very true.
Right.
Very true.
Okay, we're a variable, but it'll definitely be good if you guys send us the feedback, regardless. All right, so we're going to start out, I believe, with option selects. So Steph and JC, what are they, and why is it important that we address them in this testing grounds?
Option selects, big topic. Lots of people talking about it at different levels of kind of interest and knowledge, and what are the effects of it, basically. So let's try to define it in the most basic terms. I'll take my swing, Jason will take his swing, then we'll debate back and forth on each other.
Sounds good.
But basically, like, you do one input or one set of inputs, let's say, and the system is going to select the option for you.
That's why it's called option select.
Ooh, exactly.
Amazing
fancy stuff.
My mind is actually blown right now.
Yeah, well, I mean, you can think of it like there's a variety of option selects in games, not just For Honor, but in other fighters and other games that you can think of. The effect of them can be big or small depending on how good the options, how much coverage you have with one input, and how kind of good your choice that the system will choose for you is at that level.
All right. So I have a question though, Steph. Like I'm really curious because you said something that, you're talking about like option selects is basically when you do something, like you do an input or multiple inputs or whatever, and the game selects which option it wants to do. So by that definition, isn't it just a regular parry and option select? Like you just press heavy and it's going to sometimes parry, sometimes it's going to go to a heavy.
I'm glad you asked that question, JC. Secretly, I'm not at all glad that you asked that question, but I'm going to answer it anyway. Yes, ingrained into the core gameplay of For Honor is if you press heavy when an incoming attack is about to hit you, you will parry it if it's actually an attack. And if it was like feinted or something like that, you'll throw it a heavy. So there, deeply in the core of the system, there's an option select for sure. The good part about that one is it's a really sucky option select.
Yep.
Yeah, because either you get parry, which is it choosing the good option for you, or you'll throw a heavy, which loses to feint guard break, feint light, stuff like that. So
Stuff, yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
This is accidentally the option select I use most frequently, which is just trying to parry and getting parry baited, I feel like.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, this is how the basic side of it works. It's there all the time. Normal combat is kind of built around like heavy feint, option A, B, C from the opponent versus is it really an attack which you parry, or are you going to be vulnerable in the like, I'm throwing my own heavy and now I get wrecked by something, ideally.
Right, so it's super important to explain that dodge attacks, like a lot of things that like some players might feel are option selects because they cover multiple options would be option selects. And like the biggest offender for this, I would say, is dodge attacks, right? So people feel that, well, if I see something coming up and I do a dodge attack, then I beat feint to guard break in some sense. I beat like the attack, I beat like a bunch of different things, right? The problem with that logic is that an option select like has two different outputs. So that's why like when we do like what we call like parry option selects, and dodge attacks are different, and dodge attacks are not option selects, because when you do a dodge attack, you're always going to do a dodge attack. No matter what happens, the dodge attack is going to come out. Whether you dodged it, whether your opponent feinted, whatever happened, it's still going to happen. Whereas option selects and the way that we're touching them and we're approaching them means that you either parry or do something different.
Mm-hmm. So there's a distinction between something that's safe and something that's an option select, basically.
Well, yeah, and it's basically the idea that, like, if you have an option select, then two different things are going to happen.
Yeah.
Like, there's two different. It's not about the outcome. It's about what your character is going to do. And in the case of a dodge attack, for example, then you're always going to do dodge attack. When you try to do a superior block light, you're always going to throw that light regardless. It's just that sometimes it'll block, sometimes it won't. So that's not necessarily an option select like that.
And by the same logic, you might do a dodge. You might end up having to block something and therefore deflecting it, and then throwing your deflect attack. That's not an option select. It's like the same input would have given you X or Y, but the result was that you got hit beforehand. So I know it's going to be a bit tricky and touch and go with, like, hey, why does this not count while the other ones do count? But it's because you would never have got that dodge attack because you blocked the attack, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Right.
Hopefully.
Okay. So let's look at what option selects look like before the testing grounds. So this is a quick video that Max is going to play for us now. So before the testing ground, this is the infamous zone option select that most people know. We're not going to go into details and do like every other option select we have in the game. But for specifically the zone option select, what ends up happening is that right now the Peacekeeper throws out a top heavy, doesn't feint it, and the Warden inputs a zone attack while in top stance. And so if the attack is actually not feinted, then the Warden parries it. And if the attack is feinted, then a zone attack comes out. So that's like the super basic example of zone option select. It works quite a bit. It doesn't feel super good against like unblockable attacks and stuff, because then you don't have the same type of pressure that you would normally have.
Exactly. And one thing just in that video that you see is Peacekeeper always goes heavy. Warden always goes zone in both videos.
Yeah.
The only difference then finally is that Peacekeeper does feint in one and not feint in the other one. But Warden's input is exactly the same in both cases. It's clack zone input.
Yeah. So that's it. So that's a really good example of one input performs two different options. So after that, during the testing grounds, and if this end up going to live, what we have is so the Peacekeeper throws out her top heavy, and then the Warden does the same thing, right? He tries to parry using zone attack input, but you can say that in this case, if the Peacekeeper lets the attack go, the zone attack is always going to come out and it'll be interrupted, and the parry doesn't come out, right? So, and if you get on the same page, if the Peacekeeper feints her top attack, then the Warden's zone attack is going to come out, and then she would still have to parry it, block it, dodge it, whatever happens, right? So the tech that we've put in for this at a super high level is that anytime you would input something that could result in a parry and something else, so in this case it would be a parry or a zone attack, the parry will never come out, right? So in this case, like, you're trying to parry and you do a zone attack instead every single time. So that's the basic idea. It covers a lot of the like most of the option sets that we've seen. We've had to do a couple of other little changes here and there, but overall, this is the goal: is that you can't just parry and do something else in case you did not parry, right? So you're always going to do something else here.
Awesome,
So,
and that's a big deal for like defense in general, right?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Definitely, this expectation. Like, if I throw an unblockable attack at a single opponent, the flow chart of what might happen is quite dicey on live, and we think it's quite defender favored with these option selects. You saw in those two sets of videos, like just against a regular heavy, before Warden's ahead in both cases. In the second, Warden ends up actually behind once in a while. So that's kind of what we want to see. And then we expect the kind of meta change might be like, hey, if I've got an unblockable directional, like parryable attack, now these become a bit scarier kind of across the board.
Yeah. That's super cool. And another thing that we've seen a lot of chatter online and like through a lot of feedbacks that some players would like to have zone option select to stay, while the other like more egregious option selects to go. Right. So
Sure.
there's a couple of things to that. First of all, like the way our tech is implemented, we can't really do that. So that's one thing. But then on top of that, zone option select, no matter what, is still problematic because you still have to guess when you're attacking. You have to read what your opponent's going to do, and even if what you read is, I have to read that they're gonna zone, it means that I can't at any point let that heavy fly, because if I let it fly, it's gonna get parried, and so you end up never being able to attack quite effectively just because that exists, right? And it also has other effects on balancing in regards to zone. Steph, if you want to talk to us a bit more about that.
For sure. I mean, like, there's variety of zones in the game. Real quick, like Raider's zone sucks as an option select because it's slow. Nusha's zone sucks as an option select because you're not actually outrunning, guard break or anything like that. So you're like, okay, what's the point of this? Versus the 500 MS zones that are going to beat guard break or something like that by outrunning it. I mean, and then same deal on Blackbriar or Gladiator's melee zones, which are quite strong from that perspective. So we're kind of expecting to see the effectiveness of those kind of three types of zones come a little closer because of the option select not being there. And we're also kind of expecting the overall power of melees to not be as far ahead of unblockable attacks. Yeah. Unblockable parryable attacks, sorry.
Yeah, right. So I'm personally super excited. Like I think from what we've been seeing internally, it felt really, really good. You felt like you could actually throw out some unblockable attacks once in a while, and there was a bigger chance of them coming through. So that was super cool. And the last thing I want to point out is that if you think your opponent is going to feint, you can still try to throw out a light or throw out a zone or throw out something to interrupt them and make them read what you're going to do if they feint. So this is not a case of, like everything, the defense is super nerfed or whatever. It's just a case of you can't use like zone or like whatever other option select to cover multiple options that will result in a parry. So that's the important thing there.
Yeah, all the dirty option selects that we all hate.
Yeah,
yes,
yeah.
Perfect.
I appreciate you guys going into like a deep dive to what like option selects are, because for someone like me, like I didn't necessarily know what qualified as an option select, so I definitely appreciate you guys sharing some knowledge. But let's go ahead and get to the heroes. Let's talk about
Absolutely.
some hero changes. I know everyone's very excited about these. Let's go ahead and start with Orochi. So, Steph, what are we doing?
So Orochi on live, super high picked. Everyone's picking Orochi all the time. Power level doesn't seem to matter on this character, so that's cool. And where does Orochi suck? In 1v, well, let's
tell it like it is. Yeah,
we keep
it real.
I love it. Yes.
Sorry, I killed myself in trouble again. I mean, 500 MS lights and one at this point, top heavy unblockable. That's your set of pressure, let's call it. Not a good opener, not very good in 1v1, definitely not good at all in 1vx. So why would you pick a Orochi in those ones? We would like the Orochi to be able to open. We would like the Orochi to be able to hit with stuff once it's in a chain, and we would like it to have some external pressure so it can fight in group fights. That's the idea. I'll throw it over to JC before I get myself revealed.
All right. So let's get started. So first change, right? So dodge cancels. So Orochi can now cancel all of his non-dodge attack recovery. That's super important. You can't dodge cancel your dodge attacks. So when they're hit, when they're blocked but not superior blocked, and when they miss into a dodge. So Max has a quick video here we can see. So the idea is like after every single one of your attacks, not just your finishers anymore, you can cancel your recovery into a dodge. You can go side dodge, target swap into other people. You can do a bunch of different things. So that's kind of interesting. So Steph, why would we put dodge cancels everywhere on this character?
There's two reasons. Like one, you become a better group fighter if I can hit the guy in front of me and then dodge something else that might be happening. And then I think as we go through the remainder of these changes, you might say, why is it good to be dodging as an Orochi?
Yeah, that's interesting. Okay,
yes, let's
so
see.
So let's look at the next one. Storm Rush. So Storm Rush has gotten quite a bit of changes. You can now access Storm Rush from both front dodge and back dodge. Before it was just back dodge. So now you can actually front dodge into something. All three sides now have 400 ms visible indicators. It was like 3 on one side, 4 on the other, and then I think 6 or 7 on the top. That experiment didn't necessarily super work. And now on top of that, all three sides are undodgeable. So that makes a big difference too, because you can't just beforehand you could just block top and then just dodge, side dodge, and you would like if you had a static guard character, you would just avoid Storm Rush altogether. And it also now costs 12 stamina to enter and 10 to feint, and there's absolutely no other stamina cost. So beforehand, Storm Rush used to cost a ton of stamina to go into. There was stamina cost at a bunch of places. We've simplified it quite a bit. It's a lot more accessible. It works better. That makes a big difference. So Max can play us a little video while we talk with Steph to go. Why did we do that to go to front dodge, and what's going on with this guy?
It's with front, you have a lot more opportunity to have value in group fights, but also you have a lot more value to like be able to run down people who want to dodge or roll out of a combat scenario. So this is cool. I know you might be thinking, hey, with those timings, is it really that good of a mix-up? We'll come back to that later on. I know JC wants to hold off on what is the last piece of this puzzle. Yeah. But yeah, it feels good to do this, at least. I'll say for now.
All right, good. So now we're going to look at Riptide. So Riptide Strike was not super good in the past. We had improved it when we did the rework like a couple of years ago, but it still didn't live up to what it should be. So there's a couple of changes. First is 500 milliseconds. Used to be 6, so that's a little bit faster, so that's good. It also now has iframes, so you can actually dodge attacks with it, kind of like what a dodge attack should be able to do. And it's no longer interrupted on non-superior block, which means that you can potentially do it on somebody, and they can't just block top and go, okay, well, you know, it doesn't matter, because then you can still go into your pressure and do all that sort of stuff. So that's pretty interesting.
AKA normal block, I guess.
Yeah, exactly, right? The normal block, like as if it was like a heavy attack, right? So we have that video there. So Steph, while that video is going, so why would we do those changes to Riptide?
You can see here, like it. You don't quite see in the video, but it's better at dodging, so this is cool. And if it's not stopped on block, this can be quite useful in group fights from at least my experience so far.
Yeah, that's pretty good, and also like it helps Orochi add a little bit of pressure, and it's a much better dodge attack. That's it. Like we don't really see it in the video, but it works quite well, quite a well better. Okay, so now side and front dodge lights. So same as Riptide, the only change that we've done with these guys is that they're no longer interrupted on non-superior block. Again, same type of thing. We want them to be able to be usable in group fights and that sort of stuff. And also, like, because they're slower, the idea is that, at least for side dodges, like, normally you want to be able to, like, dodge bashes, and then some characters have, like, recovery super quickly. So even if they're blocked, you can still go into your pressure afterwards, right?
Yeah, and remember that you can also, like, dodge after nearly everything, so you're going to be able to access these in your fights quite often.
Oh, yeah, quite a bit. And also, like, these are really good in group fights. So next up, we have something a little bit new. Oh my god, what is this? A kick! Everybody has been requesting a kick on Orochi for the longest time. He actually did need an opener quite a bit. So this is what we're doing with Orochi for a bash, basically. He has a front dodge kick, right? So you do front dodge guard break. The attack itself is 500 milliseconds. You can do it at 300 ms into the front dodge, and you can delay until 5. Like a lot of what we've been doing with the past reworks. We find that this timing works quite a bit, and it's not as it still works. The mix-up that it has still works, but it's not as frustrating as it is with some characters that have it like super quickly. So that's good. And then when it lands, it confirms a chained light attack. So what's like there's a good thing with this, like it's an opener, right? So it works well. But then there's a couple of other things that tie into the whole dodge thing that I would like that was like in Teases. So Steph, you want to run us through this quickly?
Yeah, I mean, you can see here, it's like, well, if I can tell that Orochi is going to dodge forward at me and then like do a kick, it's kind of in the same boat as, let's say, someone like Centurion. So it's quite good at what it does, but is not necessarily the greatest opener of all time. But you pair this with forward dodge Storm Rush, which means you can't just like dodge roll it on, hey, I see dodge, therefore I'm out, right? The Storm Rush is going to run you down. So actually you have to deal with like, is this a dodge forward kick? Is this a Storm Rush? and Orochi dodging forward is now quite a scary deal.
Yeah. So one of the things here that I want to like point people toward, because it might not be super obvious, but it's like one of the big logic behind why we did what we did for these things, is that because Orochi can now dodge cancel every single one of his attacks except for dodge attack, he can actually go and after every one of his attacks dodge forward, go into a mix-up that can loop back into like other things. That's super strong. And that's part of why we did not put armor. I know a lot of players, like a lot of people have been seeing wanting to have like armor on Storm Rush and stuff. Mm-hmm. And we ended up deciding not to do it, mostly because depending on what attack you use, you have different ways of defending yourself. You can light him out of certain things. After light attacks, for example, you can like you can, if you read that Orochi is going to do something like that, you can like typically light him out of it. But after heavy hits, you might not be able to. So like there's a bunch of different things there. So I would encourage people to really experiment with that and see how you can defend against it, what you can do with it, how effective it is after different types of attacks, and see how that works. So that's super, super interesting. Next up, we have some changes on normal attacks. So here's something that's going to be like probably jarring to a lot of people. We've straight up removed light finisher, right? So part of the idea is that there's a lot of complaints about light spam on Orochi. And understandably, like a lot of his tools were basically just like light, and constantly do that. So now there's no more light finisher, right? But on top of that, to kind of compensate and to also kind of like change his flow up and change the way he works a little bit, is that every single non-bash opener, so basically all of his openers except for kick, because kick guarantees a second light, so that's okay. They all guarantee a combo light attack. Before it was just on top light, now it's on every single attack that he has. So he gets a little bit more damage off of every single attack that he does, but on top of that, it also lets him access a bunch of different things. So that's pretty interesting. Side A finishers also have larger trajectories, so you can use them a bit more in group fights. There's still 700 MS, so you can still do like interesting things where like you maybe like you dodge attack somebody, swap target, do a side A finisher, and you can tag a couple of more people. So that's pretty good. And they also have extra forward movement. We've seen that works quite well with some other characters, so we've pushed towards that a little bit. So so Steph, what's your feeling about these?
I think it's quite cool. One of the major complaints with Orochi with the 3 500 MS lights is like, oh, light spam. At the same time, it's not particularly effective at high level. So it's kind of like, well, let's dump the move that isn't effective at high level anyway. Give combo lights as kind of an in-chain kind of like benefit. With the idea being like we have the effectiveness at high level and we have reduced frustration at low level. And at the same time, Orochi can do the top heavy unblockable and reach dodge options quite often anyway. So we're kind of hoping it's going to hit that sweet spot of both sides have something useful to use on this kit.
Awesome. All right. And so last but not least on Orochi, we have Deflects. So we've done a couple of things on the Deflect attacks. Previously, Orochi had like a Deflect light or heavy. The heavy version was super situational. You would only really use it against like some specific attack that had massive recovery. Sometimes you could like bait some people, but it wasn't super effective. So what we've done is we've straight up removed the heavy version. So you can't really do it. You can't do it at all anymore, actually. But we've buffed the light one so that it forces a reaction on your opponent. Before it didn't at all. You would just do like a quick attack. So it was like it didn't work as well. So at least with this, you should be able to force your opponent into like a specific animation, so it works a little bit better, and it also leads to a combo light like other attacks, so you can actually do like deflect, light, and then go into your top heavy finisher, do it kind of whatever you'd like to do. That works quite well. So you see that the warden here, when he gets hit by the deflect attack, actually like does a little different thing, like close to what we had with the Hurricane Blast version. So Steph, like one of the things that we've been hearing quite a bit is that like there's a lot of people that are not super happy with the fact that we're putting Deflect on the same button as the dodge attacks in general. So why do we do that exactly?
So, I mean, there's a couple of things here. Like in this particular case, it's like splitting the functionality into the heavy and the light version was way too situational on the heavy version, in kind of our opinion. So streamlining this a bit is a good thing. In some other cases, is to help out those players where do they have to press both buttons when they do a dodge in case there's a deflect, and otherwise because they want the dodge attack? it can kind of streamline a little bit. So that's what's happening here.
Yeah, there's a bunch of cases where like you would dodge and you would do, okay, I have a heavy dodge attack and then a light deflect follow up. So in case in case I deflect, I want to do like light and heavy, like super quick, or like guard break or whatever we had. So we understand that like some players feel that it lowers kind of like the skill level, but at the same time it makes things more accessible, and that's generally a good thing.
Plus, I mean, it's not that entertaining a skill anyway. If that's what the concern is like, because then you can just like clack in your dodge attacks if you really want. But whatever, I guess.
Yeah. All right,
so let's high level this Orochi.
Yeah.
So
happy?
Moving on.
Okay, well,
so Raider's been on an up and down trajectory over the years of For Honor. That's for sure. So why are we approaching him again, him or her again, and what are the changes that we're going to bring?
Raider, I mean, like, kind of falls off and ends up behind, like, would you pick Raider or Kensei? You'll pick Kensei. Would you pick Raider or Warlord? You'll pick Warlord. Has a little bit on the tool side of both with the melee attack, or sprint melee attack, sorry, and kind of the chain stuff and the laning opportunities. We'd like Raider to kind of hit that sweet spot, being able to attack a little bit more than it is, being able to do the kind of group fight setup that Warlord's able to do, so that you're kind of like, well, if I'm picking one of these two, should I pick Raider? Maybe that's kind of the goal.
All right.
Nice.
Cool. So
JC, give us the goods.
Yeah. All right. So first off, Storming Tap, right? So Max is gonna have a little video, but the idea that Storming Tap is now 400 milliseconds. It used to be 5, so it's much harder to react to. It's no longer interrupted on non-superior blocks, so you can't just block and just go, oh well, it doesn't matter. But on top of that, we've removed the variable soft feint timing that was causing a lot of weirdo animation issues, on top of not being especially good, because when it was 500 ms, like it was still reactable, so it didn't really make a sense. So that wasn't super effective. And so because now it's 400 ms, the variable soft feint timing was not necessary at all anymore. And it also deals damage depending on how it was accessed, right? Because there's 2 ways to do Storming Tap. There's from dodge or as a soft feint. So depending on which version you do, you're gonna deal different damage. So Steph, like there's a couple of things here. Like so why aren't we bringing back stun? Like a lot of people are saying, oh yeah, just bring back stun. I love stun. I love that sort of stuff.
You want stun back?
Yeah, I personally don't want stun back. But why is it that we're kind of getting rid of stun in a lot of cases?
I mean, it's super annoying. Firstly, right? Like if it's a good move and it hits a lot, and you're blind all the time, that's freaking annoying. Your screen's white.
Simulator.
Yeah, exactly. It's no good. And if it's bad move and it has stun, then why do we have a bad move as like your mix-up? So we'd much rather have it at 400 ms, so it's a good mix-up, and we expect it to hit once in a while, and then not be ultra annoying if it actually hits. So that's the idea.
Exactly. All right. Okay. So next up, we have uninterruptible stance timing. So basically armor. So Raiders heavy attacks, especially as heavy finishers, had armor starting super early in a lot of cases, and it made it so that it was really frustrating playing against them. You couldn't do dodge attacks. There's a bunch of stuff you couldn't do because he would just power through them with his armor all the time. So we've actually fixed the armor timing so they start when you can actually feint. So it means that you can no longer just go, hey, it doesn't really matter. I'll just throw out my heavy, and if I absorb an attack, great, I can feint and then guard break and get like a crazy thing with stampede charge or whatever. So it's more in line with what we're doing with other heroes, right? So
yeah, and you couldn't start at 0 anyway. That was a bit buggy. So
exactly.
we're doing kind of the same roughly timings as most heroes that get armor.
So that works quite well. Okay, next up, zone attacks. So zone attacks, it's one line, but it's a big change.
Yeah.
Every single one of Raider's zone attacks now costs 12 stamina instead of I think it was like 50 or 60 from neutral and like 35 in chains. It's not always 12. So the idea is that we want to make sure that these attacks feel as if they were like just regular heavy attacks. They're slower. They don't have armor. They're not as good in a lot of different situations, but at the same time they're big unblockables with big arcs. You can use them in group fights and stuff. So that's kind of interesting. So Steph, part of like why are we doing that sort of stuff with Raider too? Because like 12 stamina is really low, and what's going on here?
I mean, the main choice for Raider is like, do I want to throw a armored attack or do I want to throw an unblockable attack in a group fight, right? Like, there's situations where you need to armor through things. There's situations where you want to hit someone with a target swapped unblockable. That's kind of the idea. If you can't access it, that's your main tool. You're not going to be that useful in those group fights.
All right. Next up, we have Stampede Charge. I don't know. Max, do you have the slide? Oh, yeah, okay, there we go. We have Stampede Charge and other light attack, like light and heavy. So we've done a couple of changes to his attacks. So top lightning chains is always 500. All of his top lightning chains are like the same speed instead of being like much slower as they went. That did not make any sense. So now it's much better. Top heavy finisher is 900 instead of being 1,000. That's to ensure that after like a storming tap or after a bunch of different things, you can actually end up guard breaking someone who's trying to run away or whatever. And Stampede Charge is now 500 milliseconds as well. So specifically for Stampede Charge stuff, like why is it down to 500? Because it seemed to be, it wasn't that bad at 6, right?
Mhm.
I can think of someone else who's got it at that timing and has a pretty good sprint melee that has its uses. They say, but that's kind of the idea. Is like this is one hit timing at 500 ms versus Warlord, which is like 5 to who knows how long it stays on when you hold. So that's kind of the deal. Is like, can Raider now make a difference in group fights and small gank fights and so on with his sprint melee?
Yeah, and I think what's also good is that after a Stampede Charge, if you manage to ram somebody into a wall, his zone attack afterwards is 12 stamina. So you're not, oh my god, like I have to spend half my stamp to do something. So that's also like a big change that works quite well there.
Should be fun.
Yeah,
I'm enjoying
it. Yeah, so that's it for Raider, right? What do we have next again?
Is it time for the pièce de résistance, our favorite ninja boy,
I think it might
Shinobi?
be.
It's time. It is finally time to reveal the changes for Shinobi. So, Steph, can you just kind of like walk us through what the team's goal was for kind of giving Shinobi the changes that JC will be talking about after you?
Sure. All right. I'm going to be hard on this one, I guess, too. Maybe.
Do it. Give us
So knock me down. But
no filter. No
filter. If you're playing a Shinobi in Dominion right now, what are your options? You can do get up close and hope they can't deal with 500 ms zone and lights, or stand at range and really disturb fights by doing range guard break. You are unpunishable because they're going to drag you down, but your friend is going to hit them in the back with a heavy anyway.
Right.
So you're safe to do this forever. It's super annoying. No heroes have tools to really deal with you outside of maybe tier 4 feats. I don't know. But either Shinobi is like controlling the fight in a really bizarre and let's say degenerate way, or it's not really being that effective. And what sucks, and what JC is going to show you, is like Shinobi actually has really neat tools and mix-ups. They just aren't very effective, and these tools are actually extremely effective. So we're going to make a pretty significant change, let's call it.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Right, so that's it. So our logic and our idea for Shinobi is we want to make sure that we're focusing him on being more of a ganker and a 1v1 hero, and a healthy ganker, right? But the idea, a lot of it is we want to focus on landing more Sickle Rain. Sickle Rain is his main ganking tool. It sticks your opponent in place for quite a while. So the idea is we want to be able to land as many Sickle Rains as we can. So let's go into the changes, because the first one is a significant one. So ranged attacks. We've completely removed charging of attacks from neutral, and we've removed range guard break. So as a Shinobi, you no longer have that weird little delay to when you hit heavy, but at the same time, you can't also just stay out of range, stay off screen, charge your attacks, throw them, do a range guard break, do all that sort of stuff. But we still have a ranged heavy attack in a different form on the character. So Steph, like, we're removing like all these range attacks from neutral, right? So Why are we doing this? You've skidded over a little bit, but let's go a little bit more detail here.
Just to make chat super mad right now. I
Yeah.
guess is what I'm
Yeah, it's like I saw a thread that was like the rework's gonna be like 5 nerfs. So
That's the only nerf, so that's good, right?
So I mean, like the coolness of seeing your ranged kind of thrown attack, it's still going to be there in the kit. We'll see it later on. So you're going to get the coolness factor. You're not going to get the like sitting 10 meters away, whipping your thing around, waiting to do guard break when you know the opponent presses any kind of button, and therefore you get a free range guard break that they can't counter no matter what. Into a sickle rain, into the free heavy, and the guy's half dead or completely dead at this point. That just doesn't work. Heroes don't have tools to deal with this in For Honor. So I mean, like, the only options are give everybody some kind of anti-Shinobi tool, which is completely unrealistic, and the answer of what this tool would look like is pretty strange.
Yeah.
Or this has got to change up and on the opening part of the kit in some way. So that's what we've done. Don't worry, everyone on the dev team is right now crying about how strong Shinobi is. So
Yeah.
just hold your complaints until the end, because I think once you get in your hands, you'll be like, okay, we're blending the shit out of our opponents right now. So
Yeah.
you'll like it.
Steph doesn't like when I corner him with a Shinobi. So.
I say other devs, but it's just me who cries.
Yeah.
So it's me. I'm crying devs.
Exactly.
All right. Okay. So next up we have something that I like to call all roads lead to Sickle Rain, right? So what does that mean? The idea, and we're gonna go through like Shinobi's new kind of flow as we go along, because it's a little bit like it's all tools that he mostly had before, but they're refocused. But the idea is that we want you, like I said earlier, we want you to land as many Sickle Rains as you can, so you can maximize your ganking potential. It also feels good in 1v1. So there's a lot of stuff there, but the idea is that that's it. Like as we'll see, like going on, everything leads to Sickle Rain. No matter what you do, the end result should always be I can land a Sickle Rain. So that's what's gonna be a little bit more different and interesting with this character. So we're gonna look at what this means. But Steph, like, why is throwing and landing more Sickle Rains better?
I mean, it does a ton of damage. You get to hold them in a gank position, so someone can drop a heavy or a feed on them while they're down. It's a tremendously good move. I would be happy to have this move on any hero if I was that hero.
Yeah, right. Okay. So now let's talk about Sickle Rain itself. We've done some changes, right? So the top version is now unblockable, and it's 800 milliseconds instead of being 7. So it's a little bit slower, but it's unblockable. It works well. It gives a lot of pressure in 1v1. The side versions are undodgeable. Now, normally this is not a mix-up that is super good in 1v1 because since we don't have options, like we have the options like removal here.
Like you're not going to dodge that top unblockable just sight unseen, right?
Exactly,
So,
right?
Yeah.
So the side version is undodgeable for another reason, which we'll go into a little bit later. We've reduced the upfront damage to 20 because it deals a lot of damage. So that's one of the big things there. And another thing we've done is that the additional hits don't require strict timing anymore. They used to have to like hit light at like very, very specific times. You can just mash it and it's always going to come out. We're kind of getting out of those little like really specific timing things because it increases input complexity without really giving anything interesting. So we can see the video that's it. So top heavy is unblockable. Sides are undodgeable. The sides are still 700 by the way, so they're still kind of interesting there. So what do these changes, like what did he do to help so much Sickle Rain stuff?
I mean, you want to tease like what the other pieces of the puzzle are. I know JC is like addicted to doing it this way. He's like part of the mix-up, and we'll show you the good part of the mix-up later. Yeah. So all I can do is wait, I guess.
Yeah. Right.
You got to build to the main event.
Got to build up to the main event, right? Okay. So next up we have chain attacks, because that's a big part of Sickle Rain as well. So Shinobi now is able to access Sickle Rain after chain lights and combo lights. So that's a big difference. So you can actually now do like light Sickle Rain or heavy light Sickle Rain, that sort of stuff. So it opens up his neutral pressure a little bit more. And guard break also now leads directly to Sickle Rain, kind of like what range guard break used to do, right? So that's really good because you end up being able to do a lot more sickle rains, but you still get that nice feeling of, oh, I landed a guard break, I get into sickle rain, I can gank somebody. So Steph, like, why does this help him flow that much better from neutral? And like, does it make mix-ups more threatening? Like, what's the thing here?
I mean, if you're doing work with like Orochi or Raider or Shinobi here, like you're doing it on like light here. So you did light stop, light stop. Now actually you can do light and pressure, right? So that's a big flow and kind of pressure positive change for you.
Perfect. All right, that works pretty well. Next up, we have dodge kicks.
I feel like I'm getting graded on all my answers.
Yeah, you're getting graded, right? That's how it works. Right? Okay, so dodge kicks. So now you can do your dodge kicks after a single dodge instead of just after double dodge. You can still do it after double dodge, so that's okay. But you can do a single dodge into a kick now. Really opens up Shinobi. You don't have, like, it gives him much better counter-attacking opportunities. That works really well. And it now only chains to a specific ranged heavy. So that's gonna be like, we're gonna see it here. You can do front dodge kick into range heavy. You can do side dodge kick. You can do all sorts of stuff. So it works better as both an opener from neutral as well as counterattacks. So that's still quite good. He still has double dodges, right? So you can still do double dodge and do different things. What's interesting with him too is that, like, if you front dodge and your opponent like back rolls because he goes, oh crap, there's gonna be a bash coming, you can double dodge into your kick and still get them usually like at the end of the roll. So that's still quite strong. So we're gonna go next into range heavy. Range heavy is now a bash that deals damage, so we're gonna have to talk about that a little bit. But the idea is that you're gonna do a dodge kick into a range heavy. So you're gonna go bash into a bash, but this bash deals damage, so it's more kind of like an unblockable. It's a bash partially because we don't want it to be able to be parried like in weirdo situations. So it's literally just like a confirmed attack. It also changed to front roll like it did before, and it's also target swappable. So you can do side dodge kick on somebody, target swap into range heavy onto somebody else. But because it's a bash, because you can't just access it every single time, it feels way better, right?
Yeah. So if you still want to be annoying with your ranged garbage shenanigans or ranged shenanigans, you can, just not very often and in a particular way. And the other thing I like about this one is because it's not a heavy, we don't have those questions about like, hey, does my character get its parry follow-ups on Shinobi or no, which is wildly inconsistent.
Yeah.
Currently alive.
The important thing to do is like you still do it by pressing heavy attack, so it's still like you still get the same feeling that you had before after your kicks. That's still pressing heavy. It's just the outcome is a little bit different. Next we have front roll, right? So as we were saying, that range heavy changed to a front roll. So that was still part of his kit before, but it wasn't working quite well. And so now what we have is that front roll changed to sickle rain as well as flip kick, and it's also target swappable, right? So you could, in theory, go side dodge kick, target swap range heavy, target swap roll to somebody else, and then present them with a mix-up, right? And the mix-up here works. We'll see why with flip kick. But the idea is that like you have that mix-up after a front roll where it's, oh, am I going to do a flip kick or am I going to do a side sickle rain that's undodgeable? So that's why sickle rain here is undodgeable, is to allow those types of mix-ups to exist. So that flip kick works well, and it's unreactable. So you really have to, this is like it's a deeper mix-up. You have to go deeper into your chains to get it, but it's a really strong mix-up.
So this is the kind of mix-up that JC was alluding to earlier. It's like places that you can access particular kicks. You can generally also access your sickle rain. So undodgeable sickle rain or kick, both are good for you. Opponents got to be like mix up. What's the action here? So yeah, check it out.
That's pretty interesting, right? So flip kick, like I was talking before. So flip kick, the only change it got, because it's still unreactable, it's still super fast. Beforehand, it used to chain to a top heavy, well, to a range heavy, but because like you had a lot of different timings to dodge that kick, now you have a single one, so you have to like preemptively dodge, so that works. And now when flip kick lands, instead of going to a range heavy, you go into a combo heavy, which is a new move we're looking to on the next slide. But the idea is that it's like you're gonna go when you manage to land that kick, you go into a heavy, and then that heavy leads to sickle rain and other things. But Steph, so why are we doing like this kind of flip kick into a combo heavy instead of going back into a range, right?
So there's a lot of reasons why. Like one, you don't have to have that option of blending right back into the cycle. Basically, we wanted to like slightly have control over like what part of this mix-up chart are you in, and this gives us that control basically here.
Yeah, you're
Plus
not a
looks awesome.
you're not a Hitokiro or Warden where you loop into on the block like bash into confirm damage all the time. It's more like you go into more mix-ups. All right, so that works. So then let's look at combo heavy, right? So combo heavy is a new option that Shinobi has. That's after a flip kick, it can execute. So that's pretty good. It doesn't do a ton of damage, but it can still execute, and it chains to Sickle Rain. So basically, you do your flip kick into that guaranteed heavy, into a Sickle Rain. You do a lot of mix-ups. And again, this is what I was talking about earlier, where like all roads lead to Sickle Rain. The end result of a side dodge kick, which you always get to if you play your cards right, is always going to be a Sickle Rain at the end, which is always interesting. So, Steph, like the one question we have here is, why is this a heavy? Why isn't it a light instead? What do we want to do here?
For me, it was the input comfort that I felt was the most important part of this. Is like if you do kick, you press heavy afterwards. That's now you know how to play Shinobi.
Yeah.
And for me, that was a good thing. What about you?
Really well. There's the other thing that I like about this is that like first of all, it allows for more execute, so that's always cool, right? Like we always want to be able to have characters to execute a little bit more. And on top of that, because it's a heavy, we end up having like your opponent is in a reaction for a little bit longer, so it makes the follow-up top heavy unblockable a lot more threatening because it's harder to interrupt, it's harder to dodge out of. It's like so it makes the mix-up that much more potent, right? And again, all roads lead to Sickle Rain. Everything there leads to Sickle Rain. So let's go into like the end of this. So like basically, I want to recap the whole flow with his kicks and how that things work. So basically, the idea is you're gonna do a kick, right? So either from front to initiate or from side to counter, and then you're always going to your range heavy. So after your range heavy, you always go into your front roll, and that's where kind of like the mix-up start. But it's interesting because he has a different type of way of approaching things that nobody really has. It's a bit more complex. There's a bit more time that you spend in those things, and your outs as a defensive player are a little bit different. But in the end of the day, it's literally just kick into range heavy into front roll, and then it's either Sickle Rain or kick or front flip, and then that front flip is gonna go. I just noticed the slide is like pretty bad.
Same. Imagine flip kick in there instead of Sickle Rain at some point.
Yeah, that's it. Right. So that's it. So you go into a flip kick, into combo heavy, again into Sickle Rain. So the whole flow is
same mix up every time. Same result every time.
What's interesting here is that like let's say you read correctly, and you manage to like you dodge the flip kick or you stayed put for the Sickle Rain, then Shinobi kind of stops here, right? Whereas if he keeps going, then he keeps going into more and more and more mix-ups. So you have to be really careful when you face him and go where you want to go and do that sort of stuff. So like I find this is really interesting. Steph, what do you feel about this?
It's super cool. I mean, like when you see a Shinobi get away with like a whole sequence of like dodge or double dodge into kick, into ranged heavy, into backflip, into what's it going to be, roll or ranged again or flip kick or whatever, and then going into like that new heavy into Sickle Rain. Like there's a lot of stuff that goes. So it's quite an interesting and complex little matchup that you end up in, and that's super fun. Close range, let's say limited kind of range switching on this hero, but it's like they go away just to continue to bop you. Super fun, super interesting, and intense as heck. So
yeah, it feels really dynamic to me. The character feels a lot different, and like it's kind of cool to see him be still like. Because one of the points we want to do is like to keep him being mobile. You know, he's always moving around. He's always like dashing around the battlefield and stuff. So even in his move set and his mix-ups and how everything works, he moves a lot more. That's kind of cool. All right. So next up we have sprint attack. We changed sprint attack a little bit. Before it used to be kind of like a sliding kick that would unbalance your opponent. It worked, but it wasn't necessarily the best thing. It didn't feel the greatest. There was like a bunch of different weird things on it. So now
it had a few bugs as well.
Yeah, it had a few bugs. Yeah, quite a bit. So now instead of being a sliding kick, it's a kind of a handstand kick. So we have a video for this to see what it looks like. So basically, as a Shinobi, you can go this. You do like that little handstand kick. That handstand kick also combos to the same combo heavy that you get after a flip kick. So again, you press guard break, you have a heavy afterwards every single time. That's what's pretty cool about this hero. Like a lot of things are like streamlined so that you don't have to rack your brain to, oh, what am I gonna do? You know, that sort of stuff. And it also leads again to Sickle Rain, right? So you do sprint attack into that kick, into that combo heavy, into a Sickle Rain mix-up. And that Sickle Rain mix-up works because either it lands or your opponent dodges, you guard break, you go back into Sickle Rain, right? So you always go deeper into Sickle Rain. So that works quite well. So Steph, like the big change here is that we removed that knockdown, right? So why did we remove that exactly?
Yeah, I mean, like, firstly, it's super annoying. Secondly, it's super janky. Like, there's so many bugs with, like, the multiple hit timings, and then, like, if I hit one, kind of slide into the second one and hit them. Like, so many problems that way. And then secondly, we couldn't get it to flow into this or a similar type of heavy to make a nice re-entry point into this flowchart, basically.
Yeah, that's always problematic there. All right, cool. So next up, Deflect, Parry, and Teleport Kick. That's a big slide. I'll have to explain because it's a little bit different, but once you get it, it's pretty simple. So first of all, Teleport, which is basically Shinobi's Deflect attack, you now need to manually activate it using guard break. Before, it used to be automatic, so whenever you deflected with a Shinobi, you would automatically teleport, apply a bunch of bleed, all that sort of stuff. So now you have to do it manually. This might seem like it's a nerf, but it's not, because the idea here is that sometimes you might not want to use that teleport. Now you can choose, so that works quite well. So teleport now changed to teleport kick and Sickle Rain. Before it only changed to teleport kick and it was guaranteed. So teleport kick is no longer guaranteed, so you can dodge it, but then you have that undodgeable Sickle Rain mix up there. So after a deflect, your opponent has to go, oh, is he going to do a kick? Is he going to do a Sickle Rain? And then react and read accordingly.
And boom, it's another mix-up. It's
Exactly,
much more fun and interactive. It's super cool.
And again, all roads lead to Sickle Rain, right?
All
Everything
roads.
goes to all roads, every single road. Everything that Shinobi does goes to Sickle Rain at some point in the end. And we have the same logic also for Shadow Strike, which is parry riposte, right? So whenever Shinobi parries somebody, you get a guaranteed, a super quick guaranteed light. And that light didn't used to do much. So now it has the same logic as with a Deflect. So you go into Teleport Kick or Sickle Rain. So that's pretty cool. Again, you can, like, when you manage to parry somebody, you have that light. Even if it's a heavy parry, you get that guaranteed light super quick. And then you get a free mix-up afterwards. That, again, goes to Sickle Rain. So that works quite well. And like I said, Teleport Kick, it's no longer guaranteed. And the Teleport Kick now guarantees a range heavy every single time, right? So when you do land a Teleport Kick, you get that range heavy into front row mix-up again. So that, again, like the whole kick kind of like meshes and like goes well together with this. So it works quite well. You get a lot of mix-ups out of all your options, basically. So that's quite strong. So Steph, how do you feel about this?
I love it. More mix-ups is good. More interaction points is good. All the coolness that you had as Shinobi is still there. But now it's always like, am I going to hit this mix-up and mess up my opponent, or are they going to get to play against me? Versus before, continuous guaranteed stuff is cool, but it's not nearly as cool, I think. So I think when you get it here, you're going to be super satisfied.
Awesome. All right. So last but not least, backflip. So backflip, we've changed it a little bit so that it's only accessible when you land a hit, except for your range heavy attacks, so that goes to front roll. But after any other hit, Shinobi, if you hit dodge, you're gonna backflip. But it only works on hit, so you can no longer just go, I'm gonna throw out a heavy at somebody or like an enhanced light or whatever, and then just backflip and get out of trouble. You have to actually land something to get into backflip. So that works well there. It feels more like a bit of an escape tool, get a little bit more range, get back into mix-ups, because said backflip now changed to range heavy, which is a bash. That's also target swappable, so that's pretty cool. And then you can also change to front roll. So you can actually finish a Sickle Rain against somebody, do backflip, target swap, roll to somebody, or do a range heavy at somebody, or do all these sorts of things. You can do it even on your opponent in front of you, and do all that sort of stuff. So it's pretty interesting. It gives them a bit more options. before Shinobi was kind of like you would do backflip to be super defensive, whereas now it's more of a flow thing, and where you can flow to and where you can get to. So Steph, why is this better? Because normally, like, you would go, oh yeah, you can always do backflips.
I mean, it's super cool. If you can backflip, you can then pick like, hey, I want to be a little bit away from this person. I can get out of trouble depending on the group fight. I can decide to switch to a new target and start giving them trouble if I want. You've got options. They all look awesome. They actually have utility. I don't know. It's super fun to.
Yeah. There's a lot of you decide with this hero now. It sounds like a lot of picking your spots and trying things.
Yeah.
Look at.
I personally find Shinobi is he plays really, really differently, but at the same time, what's interesting is that we didn't give him that many tools. It's literally just that the tools that he had now work, right? And so I find that's what's interesting with the character is that he had access, he had all these little things, but they needed tweaking for them to work, and then we removed the more problematic parts of his kit, and it worked quite well.
These are all good points. I mean, like the mix-ups were there; they just weren't very good. Now I think they've all been kind of like tuned to really being quite interesting and healthy mix-ups. And at the other side, as you say, like the creativity I think is gonna show on one player versus another player. It's like, how does this one play? How does that one play? Can you figure out what is the best way to get through this whole like group fight scenario in this particular case? Yeah. And if the answer is yes, you're gonna look like a freaking ninja, let's say.
Yeah.
Look awesome.
It's crazy how versatile the character is going to be on the testing grounds. Because like I've been playing Aramusha for a while, and Shinobi is not really a character that I touched only because I just was bad at the character. But with all of these changes, I really want to like get into like just the nitty gritty and really kind of like work on like those mix ups and I love the dodge roll. It's so cool. I'm very excited about Shinobi. This is awesome.
Same across the board. I mean, I think I can't wait for this testing grounds. I mean, I personally, I'll just put it out there. I feel like the role that we've been on from the core combat update testing ground to Nobushi and Friends testing ground to the group of 7 Canadian content right there testing grounds we just did to this one. Option selects is going to change the game. These 3 heroes going from like 0 to hero is going to be super cool. I can't wait. July 1st to July 8th. I'm doing backflips right now. If I could do a backflip, I'd do a backflip.
You can if you're Shinobi. Good tie in there.
Games,
All right. Thank you guys so much. I feel like I could get like 3 credits at a local college for all the learning that I just did there.
I'll sign your papers there. It's okay.
Thank you so much. Yeah. Okay. That's going to really help me out, actually. So July 1st through July 8th, Warriors, please try all this stuff out. Give us your feedback. We'll have the surveys out there. We'll have a Reddit mega thread. We'll have the forums. Please let us know what you think. Stefan and JC, thank you so much for stopping by.
Thank you.
Thank you all. Have fun.